call the meeting to order. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Hi. Dee, please take the roll.
Director Wallace.
Present.
Director Stewart.
Present.
Director Nicholson.
Present.
Director Eben.
Present.
Director Danielson.
Okay. Nancy, will you please introduce the education session?
I'm going to hand that duty over to Chris Henry. Tonight we're going to be receiving a presentation on our annual audit. And PricewaterhouseCoopers is here. Michael McBride, our audit partner, is here to make a presentation, but I'll have Chris do the honors as our Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, Mike McBride's no stranger to this board, but there may be some folks out there who aren't familiar with him. Mike's an assurance partner for PricewaterhouseCoopers based in San Francisco. Mike has over 30 years of experience providing audit and business advisory services to a variety of clients, including large academic medical centers, integrated delivery systems, including captive insurance companies, foundations, and higher education organizations. In addition to providing accounting and auditing services to his clients, Mike has devoted significant time to performing financial feasibility studies, assisting clients with debt offerings, internal control reviews, and internal audit projects. Prior to rejoining PwC, I had a stint away on our side of the ledger. Prior to rejoining PwC, Mike was an administrator and director of business services for a primary care physician group practice and management services organization where he developed and implemented corporate restructuring that included a new physician compensation model. Mike is a member of the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants and is certified in California and Connecticut. So with that, Mike, I'll invite you to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Very nice to be here. Let me just tell you that this is my 10th year standing in front of this podium. It's amazing where the years go, but I can tell you, and I appreciate the opportunity to continue to be here and work with the district and the hospital. It's been a very good relationship, and I appreciate it. This is my opportunity to stand in front of you all and talk to you about the audit, the results of the audit, and where we're headed here. So you can see today's discussion is along those lines. There's also some what I'll call my required communications. These are things that my profession believes are important that we have with those charged with governance. So from an executive summary perspective, you can see here the status of the audit. We are substantially complete. We've got a few things that we need to wrap up, quality reviews, some final keeping current procedures. We would expect to get that done over the next week or so, and fully anticipate issuing what I would call a clean or an unmodified opinion. The only thing that will be different from the standard opinion will be a paragraph just talking about the fact that this year this organization adopted a new accounting standard. Pretty standard language. In terms of findings, the only thing we found this year was a reclassification matter, basically moving from one asset account to another asset account. We didn't believe that was a material error at all. In fact, it had no change to total assets, no change to liabilities, no change to equity, didn't impact anything on the profit and loss statement, certainly didn't impact anything on the cash flow. So we characterize this thing as a reclassification. When we assess the control implications of that, we've done that. I will tell you that because the matter's already been addressed, the control deficiency's already been remediated. So it's one of those one and done things, if you will. In terms of audit results, I know people have been interested in just looking at comparative numbers. And when we look at their, I'd say and this is the statement of net position, this is affectionately known as the balance sheet. When you look at the balance sheet, you can see there's probably not all that much of a significant change year on year. I'd say the biggest change you can see is when you go across the street, you see a new building that's ready to be open. So the biggest piece of that is you see the assets coming down, but the capital assets going up because you're basically getting to where you finance the ongoing construction of that. The other piece in terms of liabilities, I mentioned a new accounting standard. I'm going to touch upon that. You'll hear this a couple of times in this presentation. But the Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued a number of years ago a standard to bring the liabilities associated with post-retirement benefits offered to the employees here at the district, to bring that liability on the books, which they did this year. And it did have an impact of about $20 million. That liability was brought on properly. It will be funded over the next several years by the organization, because one of the things the organization did as a result of this was they put a trust in place and are now funding that trust to get up to where over the next several years that obligation will be fully funded. In terms of the statement of revenues, expenses, change in net position, again, if I characterize that in terms of the business world, I'd say that that's like the P&L, the income statement. Good year on year when you look at the comparison, and it's not easy to have a good year these days in the provider world. One of the changes I'd say coming through this year is as there have been improvements to the revenue cycle process where you're actually able to squeeze more cash out of the services you're providing. It results in some favorable changes in estimates coming through the profit and loss statement this year. So that's part of what's coming through, along with just the ongoing continuing operating results. So getting to the audit, at the beginning of this process, we issue a plan and we do a risk assessment. And we assess things, we identify some significant risk: management override of controls, fraud, risk, and revenue, and the valuation of the uncollected revenue. Those are the three significant risks we identify. I'm happy to report that as a result of the work we did of that, we had no findings to report to this board. Okay, the significant transaction you can see here is the GASB 75, and then the other box up here on the right-hand side. You know, included in these financial statements are a number of different entities. One of the points I wanted to make, and I've made to management, is nothing's out of scope. Every one of the entities is having procedures performed on it, right? The district is full scope, the foundation is full scope, and the other procedures have limited scope based on the size of it, but nothing's out of scope. You've heard me talk about fraud in the past. You know, in my profession, we're required to look for and detect material instances of fraud. So we do that. We do a number of different procedures here. One of the things that we look to is tone at the top, okay? What is the leadership of this organization doing around fraud and transparency? We assess that. Again, I'm really happy about the access we have to everybody on this side of the room here. We look at what is their messaging that's going on there, and I'm not aware of any instances of fraud based on the results of the procedures we performed. And in my opinion, the tone at the top doesn't lead to excessive pressures where somebody would potentially, go off the rails, so to speak. Patient service revenues. This is one of the major areas we look at, and you can see up here. This is gross revenue. And I do this because I really wanted to show what the payer mix of this organization is. So you've got roughly 70% of your patients are what I call governmental payers, right? It's either Medicare or Medi-Cal. And those payers generally don't pay cost. And so when you think about where the organization is going to generate its profit from, it's got to generate it from the commercial business, the HMO business. It puts a lot of pressure on organizations to make a margin when 70% of your business isn't generating a margin, okay? So that's kind of the business aspect of this slide. In terms of the auditing aspect of this slide, we do a number of different procedures. We do a lot of detail testing, a lot of analytics, a lot of looking at the data, assessing the data, making sure it's collectible, looking at the prior year's collectability. Again, happy to report that we found no exceptions in this area, and we believe that the reserves and the valuation techniques that management has used are appropriate and producing reasonable results. I'm going to apologize for the font here, but this is the discussion on the accounting standard. For those of you who can't read it, because I probably wouldn't be able to read it if I was sitting out there either. I will tell you that, again, this is an area that it required a lot of detailed actuarial iterative conversations, a lot of which I involve my specialist because that's a skill set that I don't have. So I bring in specialists. The organization hired an actuary to support its process in this regard. A lot of back and forth going on here. This is a very new standard that's very detailed in terms of how to implement this thing. The overall result was it increased the liability, and it's adopted retroactively. So as of the beginning of the first year you presented, it increased the liability just over $20 million, and then now that's going forward, okay? As I mentioned earlier, the organization did set up a trust, so the assets are now being used to reduce the liability, and that will continue to fund that over the next several years. So 2 pages of other required communication I mentioned earlier. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but a couple that I like to talk about. One, cooperation of management. One of the things that I've always found about this organization is I get unfettered access to everybody from top to bottom, and I absolutely appreciate the support we get. An audit is intrusive, and it's intrusive always at the wrong times of the year, but we really appreciate the support and the cooperation we get in working through things like new accounting standards, so thank you very much. And then in terms of the quality of the company's reporting, this is another one I find an interesting disclosure, but when I think about the financial statements and the volume of disclosures that are in there, and if you kind of compare that to where it was probably a decade ago, the accounting rules keep changing. They're getting more complicated. The disclosures are getting more complicated. But when I assess how good the disclosures and the transparency of those are here at the district, we find those to be right in line with what the accounting standards would require. And then my last slide I wanted to mention, organizations often ask me, and I've heard it even this morning, is, what's going to change, what's coming next in terms of accounting. And leases is probably the last big one that's coming as it relates to governmental accounting. And this will be one, like non-governmental organizations, the concept of rent expense is going away. When you do lease equipment, when you do lease space, you're going to put a right to use asset, you're going to put an obligation on your books, and this will be a significant change. It's not applicable for another 2.5 years, okay? But it will be a significant change. The organization is going to have to think about operationally these, coming up with its battle plan, so to speak, on how it's going to address these. We'll be monitoring their progress along those ways, and we'll make sure that we keep the board apprised of how the organization is doing this. But this is probably the next. This is the hopefully the last big sentinel event from an accounting perspective that'll come in place in the next few years. So thank you again to the board, thank you to management, and I'm open to any questions.
I don't have any questions, anyone? Okay, well, thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good to
have
see
a great
you.
evening. Yeah, absolutely. Very nice seeing you.
Okay, we are going to move on to consideration of the minutes of the September 12th, 17th, 24th meetings.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
Thank you. D, please. Okay, thank you.
Director Wallace,
Aye.
Director Stewart,
Aye.
Director Nicholson,
Aye.
Director Epen,
Aye.
Director Danielson.
Okay, motion passes. Any oral communications tonight?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Toy?
Thank you. This evening I'll be presenting 6 new members applying to the medical staff. The first is Mary Borses, medicine cardiology. The second is Dr. Solat Chantachote, family medicine. Next is a nurse practitioner, Jacqueline Dow. Next, Jessica Fuller, pediatrics. Satinder Kaur, internal medicine hospitalist. And Jiwoo Sun, internal medicine hospitalist. Temporary privileges approved while application is waiting include Dr. Borses, Dr. Chantachote, nurse practitioner Dow, Dr. Fuller, Dr. Kaur, and Dr. Sun. Under reappointments for 2-year, we have Dr. Ahmed Shahzad, internal medicine intensivist. Next is Nivek Amin, anesthesiology. Dr. Aaron Berry, anesthesiology. Dr. Madeline Blaurock, internal medicine. Dr. Catherine Caldwell, pediatrics. Dr. Gregory Colburn, radiation oncology. Dr. Brooke Coulter, internal medicine. Dr. Anthony Dobson, OBGYN, reproductive endocrinology and infertility. Dr. Roger Goldberg, ophthalmology. Dr. Maggie Jones, internal medicine. Dr. Uma Kantamuneni, internal medicine. Dr. Robert Kell, family medicine. Dr. Jennifer Lee, internal medicine. Dr. Terrence Lynn, interventional cardiology. Dr. Kelly Miller, family medicine. Dr. Taylor Moran Gates, critical care. Dr. Sabiha Rashid, rheumatology. Dr. Rakesh Safaya, vascular surgery. Dentist Deepinder Sahota. Dr. Nancy Salama, family medicine. Dr. Henry Sanchez, pediatrics. Dr. Padmaha Sharma, OBGYN. Dr. Alan Shotkin, pediatrics, neonatology. Dr. Rona Silkis, ophthalmology. Dr. James Song, ophthalmology. Dr. Rao Sankavalli, urology. Dr. Hang Tang, emergency medicine. Dr. Spencer Tilley, family medicine. D.O. Subena Tilley, family medicine. Dr. Nally Sang, internal medicine. Dr. Jennifer Wang, internal medicine. And Dr. Emily Wu, family medicine. Under 1-year reappointments, we have Dr. Harry Andrews for emergency medicine. Dr. Shakira Karapanini, OBGYN. We have Dr. Kenneth Kelson, GI. Dr. Veena Puri, pediatrics. And Dr. Moses Tegioff, neurosurgery. There are no conditional reappointments. For non-reappointments deemed to have resigned, we have Dr. Darlene Lee of pediatrics and Dr. Kenneth Leon of allergy immunology. Transfer in staff category, we have Dr. Goldberg going to courtesy, Dr. Kissing C going to active, Dr. Lubna Hussein going to courtesy, and Dr. Robert Pence going to active. Completion of proctoring and advancement in staff category, we have Dr. C going to active, and Dr. Shane going to active. There's no one under the categories of completion of proctoring, extension of proctorship, new privilege requests. We do have one delete privilege request, Jamie Rowe, PA. No withdrawals of applications, no leave of absences, no reinstatement of leave of absence. And we have 4 resignations, Dr. Jeffrey Kishiyama, Dr. Anu Navani, D.O. Daljit Sagu, and perfusionist Christian Whittaker.
That was a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Soy.
Sure.
Can I have a motion for approval of the credentialing action items?
Mr. President, I move for approval of the credentialing action items as presented by Dr. Choi.
Thank you.
And a second.
Thank you. Dee?
Director Wallace?
Aye.
Director Stewart?
Aye.
Director Nicholson?
Aye.
Director Epen?
Aye.
Director Danielson?
Okay, that motion passes. Hi, Jane.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Greetings from the volunteers. Quick, a couple items. One, based on a recommendation by our advisor, Angus Cochran, that I mentioned that we did have a clean audit this year. We always do, but he says it's always worth mentioning, so I did it. The second thing was I wanted to share firsthand experience with the active shooter drill that we had last month. There were several volunteer service league members that volunteered to be victims. We all thought it'd be great to get the moulage and really look like we were beat up. And so I signed up and was a victim of 2 gunshot wounds to my abdomen, which I did really have great makeup done and wanted to show everybody. But as fun as it was and as good of an experience as it was, I was really surprised how I felt. And my role was I was supposed to be unconscious the whole time, unresponsive. So all I could do was listen. I just laid and listened and had my eyes closed. And from the beginning to the end. It was quite an education. But what surprised me was I wasn't ready for the hit that I felt when they said she has to leave. She needs surgery immediately, but we're not a trauma center. She has to leave. And I thought, my purse is upstairs with my ID. I don't know where they're going to send me. Don't make me leave. And it was such a surprise. I mean, this was all going on in my head. First, it was all fun and pretend, but then the reality of this could really happen, that they were saying there's 2 ambulances and 1 helicopter, put her on the helicopter. And then they were moving me. And I'm thinking, wait, my stuff is here. Nobody knows where I'm going. Don't make me leave. Minutes matter. Don't make me leave my home, my hospital, my community. And it was a real surprising, guttural, visceral reaction. I've always been an advocate for getting that trauma center designation, but even in pretend, feeling it was so strong that I don't want to leave. So anyway, I just wanted to share that experience with you. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I'm very grateful that the Fremont Police Department was willing to come here and do that with us. We both learned from each other. They have very different imperatives than the hospital does, and we learned a lot about each other doing it. And I believe all of that will stand our community in good stead should we ever be called to be tested like that. And I pray that we don't, but there are no guarantees.
Mm-hmm. It was a great exercise
Police
for everybody.
department was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. The first responders, the firefighters, they were there
Yeah.
tagging, transporting,
Yes,
so it was great.
that's right. We have the fire department there as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Back to you, Dr. Soy.
For the medical staff report, we presently have active members, 353 members, total 604 with an ambulatory staff of 99.
Challenge now will be to stay above 6.
Yeah.
I know, just a little bit above.
Well, once you see some of the clips that are on KGO, I think that can attract a lot of
Yeah.
more interest in our facilities. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the hospital.
Before we go to the video, I wanted to mention to the board and to our community that Washington Hospital Healthcare System has been recognized by Program Beta for our Quest for Zero activities in both OB and in the emergency room. And we've received excellence awards from them. And we're very proud of that, and proud of the staff who participated to help get us there. Okay, please, the video.
Past health promotions and outreach events. On Thursday, September 13th, Washington Hospital hosted a special ribbon-cutting ceremony to officially commemorate the completion of the Morris Hyman Critical Care Pavilion. The pavilion will house our new emergency department, critical care units, and medical surgical patient rooms. The ribbon-cutting ceremony featured speakers from Washington Hospital, the Washington Township Healthcare District Board, Fremont Bank, and community spiritual leaders who offered blessings for the building. Tours of the building followed the ribbon-cutting ceremony. On Saturday, September 15th, community members were invited to the Community Open House. The open house was an opportunity for community members to see and learn about our 224,800 square foot, state-of-the-art, seismically safe, and family-centered pavilion. Participants were able to see building features that include all private patient rooms, use of natural lighting, a 3-story atrium, and a special tribute to community leader and advocate, visionary, philanthropist, and Fremont Bank founder Morris Hyman. On Thursday, September 20th, as part of the Caregiver Series, J.B. Goodyear, Spiritual Care Coordinator, and Father Jeff Finley, Palliative Care Coordinator presented Securing Care Preferences Through Advanced Healthcare Directives. 28 people attended. Also, on Thursday, September 20th, as part of the Women Empowering Women series, Dr. Victoria Liepart, gynecologist, and a special guest from Safe Alternatives to Violent Environments, SAVE, presented Healthy Relationships. 15 people attended. On Saturday, September 22nd, Washington Hospital hosted the annual Abdominal Aortic Aneurysm Screening. Aneurysms develop over time and may have no symptoms, but if one bursts, it can cause immediate and life-threatening symptoms. Dr. John Thomas Mahegan, vascular surgeon, interpreted results from this Doppler screening. This event was sponsored by the Fremont Bank Foundation. A total of 71 people were screened. Of the 71, one person screened positive for an aneurysm. Also, on Saturday, September 22nd, Washington Township Medical Foundation participated in the Fremont Police Safety Fair. The event featured safety booths, activities for children, crime prevention seminars, child safety seat inspections, and more. More than 300 people visited the health information booth. On Sunday, September 23rd, Washington Hospital and Washington Township Medical Foundation staff provided information on health-related programs and services during the Community Information Fair at the City of Newark's 63rd Annual Newark Days celebration. More than 100 people visited the health information booth. On Tuesday, September 25th, Dr. Harpreet Dillon, Internal Medicine, presented How to Stop Disease Before It Starts. 18 people attended. On Wednesday, September 26th, Dr. Victoria Liepart presented Keeping Your Brain Healthy. 41 people attended. On Thursday, September 27th, Washington Hospital participated in the City of Fremont Employee Health Fair. Washington Hospital employees provided health education along with glucose, cholesterol, and blood pressure screenings. More than 300 people attended the event. 79 glucose and cholesterol screenings were provided. 77 blood pressure screenings were provided. On Saturday, September 29th, Washington Hospital staffed an information booth at the HERS Breast Cancer Foundation Keep Abreast 5 and 10K Walk-Run event at Quarry Lakes in Fremont. Staff provided health information and massages. The event raised funds for breast cancer programs and services. Washington Hospital was a sponsor. More than 600 people participated in the event. On Tuesday, October 2nd, and Wednesday, October 10th, Christy Caracappa, Health Insurance Information Service Coordinator, presented How to Navigate Your Medicare Plan. 49 people attended. On Tuesday, October 2nd, Washington Hospital participated in the City of Newark 19th Annual Senior Health and Resource Fair at Silliman Activity Center. Staff provided health information and bone density screenings for osteoporosis. 27 people were screened for osteoporosis and more than 100 people attended the event. On Wednesday, October 3rd, physician assistant Mark Lanuza presented Taking Charge of Your Health. 13 people attended. On Thursday, October 4th, as part of the Diabetes Matters program, Luann Sadoeste, RN, and registered dietitian Macaria Meyer presented Filipino cuisine. This presentation explored modifying traditional recipes to make them healthier without losing their distinctive flavors. 16 people attended. On Saturday, October 6th, Washington Township Medical Foundation staffed a booth at the Science in the Park in Hayward. Dr. Stephen Zahner, family practice and sports medicine specialist, also demonstrated iSync, a new state-of-the-art tool to improve concussion detection. More than 2,000 people attended the event. Upcoming health promotions and community outreach events. On Tuesday, October 16th, from 6 to 8 p.m., as part of the Stroke Education Series, Melissa Reyes, RN, will present Part 2, Life After Stroke. This presentation is an overview on how to better understand your condition and how to move forward after a stroke. On Thursday, October 18th, from 5 to 7:30 p.m., Washington Hospital will host the 10th anniversary of the Think Pink Breast Health Awareness event. The event will feature a health fair and presentations by Dr. William Degoni, General Surgeon and Medical Director of the Women's Center, Dr. Bogdan Eftimia, Hematologist-Oncologist, Medical Co-Director of the UCSF Washington Cancer Center and Medical Co-Director of the Washington Cancer Genetics Program, Julie Aragon, Washington Wellness Center Tai Chi instructor, and Lori Roffelson, registered dietitian. Dr. Victoria Liepart will MC the event. Call 510-608-1301 to register or for more information. On Wednesday, October 24th and Thursday, October 25th, from 3 to 6 p.m., Washington Sports Medicine is hosting sports physical clinics for high school students. Student athletes from all sports in the Fremont, Newark, and Union City area are welcome. Each student will receive an assessment and physical to ensure they meet the California Interscholastic Federation requirements in order to play sports. Medical Director Dr. Russell Nord, along with other providers from the Washington Township Medical Foundation, will provide the examinations. Athletes will also receive orthopedic screenings by certified athletic trainers. The event also includes a health fair to raise health awareness to our rising athletes. The events will take place at Mission San Jose High School and Washington High School in Fremont. The cost is $20. All proceeds will be donated back to the schools for their sports medicine programs. Also, on Wednesday, October 24th, from 6 to 8 p.m., Dr. Diane Martin, infectious disease specialist, Dr. Bruce Lin, vascular and interventional radiologist, and Dr. Bogdan Eftimia will present the link between hepatitis B and liver cancer, prevention and treatment. At this seminar, participants will learn the critical importance of hepatitis prevention and treatment. They will also learn the signs and symptoms of liver cancer and how it is diagnosed and treated. On Saturday, October 27th, Washington Hospital and the Taylor McAdam Bell Neurosciences Institute will host the Advances in Neurosciences 9th Bay Area Symposium. Internationally recognized experts will discuss a wide range of topics, including management of opioid dependency, minimally invasive spine procedures, and brain mapping technology, concussion diagnosis, and advances in neurosciences technology, care, diagnosis, and treatment. The program coordinators are Dr. Sandeep Kunwar, neurosurgeon, Dr. David Larson, radiation oncologist, and Dr. Moses Tagioff, neurosurgeon. Speakers include Dr. Edward Chang, professor of neurological surgery and Bose biomedical investigator, co-director, Center of Neural Engineering at UCSF and UC Berkeley. Dr. John H. Chi, director of neurosurgical spinal oncology, Brigham and Women's Hospital, associate professor, Harvard Medical School. Dr. Richard Fessler, professor of neurosurgery, Rush University Medical School. Dr. Jonathan Katz, medical director, Forbes Norris MDA ALS Research and Treatment Center. Dr. Angela Lumba Brown, clinical assistant professor, emergency medicine and pediatrics, Stanford University. Co-director, Stanford Brain Trauma, Evidence-Based Consortium. Dr. Sharon Shaw, clinical associate professor, Neurology and Neurological Sciences, Stanford University. Dr. Mark Schumacher, professor and chief, Division of Pain Medicine, UCSF School of Medicine. And from the Washington Hospital Taylor McAdam Bell Neuroscience Institute, Dr. Sandeep Kunwar, neurosurgeon, Dr. Eldon Eichbaum, neurosurgeon, Dr. Jeffrey Thomas, cerebrovascular and neurointerventional surgeon, Dr. Jack Rose, neurointensivist, Dr. Sharon K. Singh, neurologist. This symposium is intended for clinical providers. To register for the symposium, call 510-791-3417. On Thursday, November 8th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m., as part of the Caregiver series, J.B. Goodyear and Father Jeff Finley will present Caring for Someone with Dementia or Other Medical-Related Memory Loss. On Saturday, November 10th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Washington Hospital will host the annual Diabetes Awareness Health Fair. The event will begin with a health fair from 9 to 11 a.m. The health fair will include blood glucose, cholesterol, and blood pressure screenings in addition to diabetic foot exams. There will be 2 speaker presentations from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Dr. Archana Bindra, endocrinologist, will present diabetes maintenance care, and registered dietitians Makaria Meyer and Mary Sun will present diabetes diet, creating a healthy meal plan. Dr. Prasad Kata, endocrinologist, will MC the event. To register, call 800-963-7070. Bay Area Healthier Together. Washington Hospital's partnership with ABC7 continues to provide health-related information and education through on-air programming and on BayAreaHealthierTogether.com. September's featured topic was Health Insurance Information Service, plus articles on the patient's playbook and when to seek emergency or urgent care. The Washington Hospital Healthcare Foundation Report. On Saturday, October 13th, the Washington Hospital Healthcare Foundation will host the 32nd annual Top Hat Dinner Dance. This year's gala will be chaired by Marcia Badella, Dr. Carmen Akawili, Medical Director of the Intensive Care Unit, and Dr. Kadir Halimi, Medical Director of the Emergency Department. Proceeds from the evening will benefit Washington Hospital's new intensive care unit in the Morris Hyman Critical Care Pavilion. It's not too late to join us. To reserve last-minute tickets, please call the Foundation at 510-818-7350. The Washington Township Healthcare District Board of Directors Report. Washington Township Healthcare District board members, along with members of the Washington Hospital Service League, participated in the Newark Days Parade on September 22nd, where they won second place in the modern car category. Board members also attended the Saves Evening of Empowerment Gala on September 22nd, Tri-City Elder Coalition's Seniors Night Out on October 5th, One Child's annual fundraiser also on October 5th, the New Haven Schools Foundation's Mutt Strut October 6th, and Science in the Park also on October 6th. Washington on Wheels WOW Mobile Health Clinic. On Saturday, September 29th, the Washington on Wheels Mobile Health Clinic provided first aid support during the HERS Breast Cancer Foundation Keep Abreast 5 and 10K walk-run event at Quarry Lakes in Fremont. Internet and social media marketing. Washington Hospital's website serves as a central source of information for the communities the district serves and beyond. The hospital's About WHHS was September's most viewed webpage with 34,769 views. The hospital's social media presence is measured through total reach and engagement stats. The total reach statistic represents the number of people who saw a Washington Hospital Facebook post. Social media posts may reach a user via a news feed, which is the most common, a user's page timeline, or via a direct link to a hospital post. The engagement statistic represents users who liked, commented, shared, or clicked on a Washington Hospital Facebook post. InHealth, Channel 78. During the month of September, Washington Hospital's cable channel 78, InHealth, captured new programming including 3 health and wellness programs titled Peripheral Vascular Disease, What You Need to Know, How to Stop Disease Before It Starts, and Keeping Your Brain Healthy, and the Caregiver Series program on Securing Care Preferences Through Advanced Healthcare Directives. In addition, InHealth aired the September Board of Directors meeting. Additional events and announcements. On Tuesday, September 18th, in conjunction with the Fremont Police and Fremont Fire Departments, Washington Hospital hosted an active shooter drill in the Morris Hyman Critical Care Pavilion. While this type of event is highly unlikely, sadly, in today's world, we must be prepared. The completion of a new building that does not yet hold patients is a rare opportunity to work with local law enforcement to create an exercise of this nature. Staff in the emergency department and the second floor critical care unit role-played with a shooter and with victims who presented realistic-looking injuries. Awards and recognitions. On September 26th, During the annual State of the District Address and Award Ceremony, State Senator Bob Wykowski presented District Board Member Pat Danielson with the 2018 Unity Award in recognition of all her service to Washington Township Healthcare District and the City of Newark. On October 5th, Board Member Pat Danielson was recognized as a Silver Legacy honoree by Tri-City Elder Coalition at the 25th Annual Seniors Night Out. Board Member Danielson received this award for her years of service as a member of the Board of Directors of Tri-City Elder Coalition and a member of the Senior Night Out Planning Committee. The award was presented by State Senator Bob Wykowski and Assemblymember Bill Quirk. For more information on any of the programs mentioned, visit WHHS.com or call 800-963-7070. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to the October Employee of the Month. You have a photo for me? There we go. I'd like to introduce you to Karen Ward. On a daily basis, our admitting clerks are meeting patients who are understandably a little scared or anxious, and while some may find this role a little stressful, Karen Ward sees it as her opportunity to offer encouragement and comfort. Prior to joining our hospital, she worked in medical and dental offices, and she did enjoy her work. But she felt that she had a skill set that would better serve a larger organization, and she works now both in our admitting department and in our emergency department. The first thing Karen gives patients she meets is her full attention, and that's a special gift. In a world where people move quickly, she understands that full focus and patience are the two most important tools she works with. She says, patients that I'm dealing with are usually upset. This job has taught me to be a good listener. She's dependable and conscientious, and her sincerity means that when Karen Ward asks, "How are you today?" she'll wait patiently for that reply. When she's not at the hospital, she's very involved with her church. She participates in youth programs and women's ministries. She also has a hobby that has become a passion: roller skating. She skates on a weekly basis and has traveled all over the country with her skating club for skate parties. I'm very proud to present to you Karen Ward.
Okay, I guess we're going to now move on to the lien report.
Yes, I have a tag team tonight for you. I have Raju Tiara and Walter Chodo. I think most of you have met Raju before. He's the technical manager of medical imaging. He began his career at our hospital in January of 1980. He was promoted to the position of technical manager in 2003. In that capacity, he oversees the operations of the medical imaging department, including diagnostic radiology, CT, ultrasound, nuclear medicine, and MRI. He holds a master's degree in English literature and a bachelor's degree in science. Walter Chodo is the senior director of ambulatory care services at Washington Hospital. He's responsible for the Development Corporation entities, including Washington Radiation Oncology, Urgent Care, Outpatient Rehab, Medical Billing, and Washington on Wheels. He is also responsible for the medical imaging departments. He's been with Washington Hospital for 7 months. We have opposite ends of the spectrum here in terms of tenure. He was previously at Good Samaritan Hospital, where he was a service line administrator. He's had responsibilities for rehab services there, contract services, and labor management. He received his undergraduate degree in accounting from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and his master's in healthcare administration from the University of Washington. And with that, I'll hand the program over to these two gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Good evening, everybody. My name is, I want to thank you first for allowing Raju and I to present the Medical Imaging Department's transition workshops. Like Nancy said, my name is Walter Chodo, and I'm the Senior Director of Ambulatory Care Services, and I'm also the executive sponsor for both of these workshops that we're about to discuss today. So we wanted to be proactive and really start planning for the move. So process improvement is just one aspect of the large amount of work that needs to be done by that has been already done by the organization to prepare for the opening of the new building. Just like the supplies, equipment ordering, and placement, process optimization is also a key to prepare for the new space. By adopting our current processes and adopting those into the features of the new building, this helps us understand what resources we need and also how to use them efficiently. And also this allows the staff to have fewer things that they need to be used when they make the move. And then finally, the engagement of the staff in the decision-making The engagement of the staff in the decision-making around the transition process really helps them invest in the move. So the question is, why Lean? So Lean engages the people that really do the work, the frontline staff involved in promoting the solutions. The advantage of going to the Gemba, which is the Lean terminology for where the work gets done, allows us to really not only understand the current process, but then what changes we need to make in order to identify what opportunities we can implement in the new space. This also allows us to promote the transparencies of issues and for Lean leaders like myself to remove barriers before they become problems. Okay, so with both of the Lean workshops, we wanted to make sure that we have a few items that we want to keep focused. With the Morris-Hyman critical care design, we wanted to keep those positive elements of the design into consideration with the two workshops. So for example, they have private rooms. We wanted to make sure that we take a look at that because we know that that's best for the patient. Also, we wanted to look at the flooring designs of the pods. We know that it's a positive design to make sure that the patients are being taken care of by the nurses, and it's a safety issue. Okay, so this is the two A4s that are part of our workshop. So an A4 is basically a roadmap that really keeps us focused and the boundaries and making sure that we stay focused on the deliverables that we have for the workshop. And in preparation of that, we also wanted to make sure that we broke it down into two categories. So the first category that I'm going to be talking about today is the transport of the imaging patients. And then the second topic that we'll be discussing today is the ultrasound procedure workflow. So as you can see, the current patient flow of the transporting patient, not only from the moment they get an order, but to the moment they pick up the patient, and then also taking them to the imaging department, is very complex. So in our workshops, we have different subject matter experts that are part of the workshop, but they are a piece of the current workflow. So what we had to do is Raju actually did an excellent job of not only giving the team a high-level overview of the current process, so that way they have an understanding of where their initial starting point would be. So with that, we wanted to make sure they understand what the current state is. So after Raju explained the current process, we took the team to the Gemba, which is where the work gets done, and they observe where the work actually is being done in the main hospital. They also identified areas of opportunity for waste, and then once they did that, they came back to the team, and then they started brainstorming ideas. So they created idea summaries, and with that idea summary basically is they did drawings that identified what the current state is and then also what the future state would look like if they were to draw it. So they had a lot of fun with this, and they were able to take all those idea summaries and we were able to group them into different categories. So after we've identified what those categories were, we created two separate teams because there were two focus areas that we wanted to focus on. One was the transport process team, and the second one was the scheduling coordinating team. So the transport process team, what they did is they first, after they understood the process of what the transporters had to go through, they went to the Gemba and started meeting with the actual transporters. So what they did, and I actually had a chance to go with them, is they followed a patient from the moment the transporter got a notice on their phone, went in, picked up the patient, observed what the transporter had to do, walked with the transporter from the patient to the elevators to the medical imaging area, and then after that, they dropped off the patient, make sure the patient was safe, and then they went and picked up another patient. So they were able to see this multiple times and really get a true understanding of some of the barriers and some of the issues and challenges that they were facing. So those are things that they kept in the back of their mind when they were working on their workflow. So in addition to that, they were able to also understand the new Epic tool that was implemented in September for ordering patient transports. Another thing that the team was able to accomplish was they were able to go up to the nursing floors and educate the staff, especially the nurses, on some of the available functionalities within Epic. They were able to show the nurses that they can go actually into Epic, see where their patient is during the transport process, and then also letting them know when the patient will be scheduled for transportation. So the reason that is important, it's because this allows the nurse to know where the patient is and when the patient's expected to go to transport. They'll be able to communicate to the family members, to the patient, and set expectations. Hey, this is the time that you're scheduled to be transported. Or if the family member comes and visits the patient and the patient's not in the room, the nurse can say, oh, you know what, the patient is actually en route, and I can show you the patient is right here in the imaging department and will be done shortly. So this allows the communication between the nurses and the patient. So what the team was able to accomplish was that they were able to create standard work for the patient transport. They were also able to establish guidelines for the transporters in response for non-routine occurrences, meaning that if the patient is not ready when the transporter arrives to the room, what do they need to do? So they were able to come up with guidelines and making sure that everybody's educated on those guidelines. In addition to that, they established standard work for signaling RNs on transporting statuses. So the benefit of all this is we wanted to accomplish a few things. One is we wanted to decrease variations between transporters. We wanted to make sure that all the transporters are all doing the same thing and there is no variation. Also, a better understanding of the functions within Epic. We felt that that was extremely important. And also this would assist ensuring the patients are being transported in a much efficient manner, especially now that we're transporting patients from one building to the next. So the patient is better also informed of the timing of the studies as well. So while the transport process team was working on the workflows, the scheduling coordinating team was working on identifying how can they efficiently utilize the new Epic transport scheduling module to schedule the patients that have different types of modalities. So, for example, we do have patients that in the morning they have either an ultrasound or a CT. So they wanted to take a look at that and how to make that more efficient. Also, we do have technologists that have different staggered shifts. So how do we take that into account as well? So this is all important because the patient's acuity, they changes every single day. So we need to be able to have a mechanism, to be able to adjust to those patient needs. So what the scheduling coordinating team was able to accomplish is they were able to create standard process for patient scheduling. They were able to create guidelines for technologists to request that transport. And also what I liked most about this too was they were able to establish daily huddles to discuss the transport priorities, meaning that every morning the staff were to get together and they were to identify what their workload is and how they work together to best accommodate that workload and also to what would be best for the patient depending on the modality. So in Lean, we call that level loading. So this is extremely important because this allows us to improve the efficiency for the imaging technology and staff. Also the real-time adjustments, so they had the flexibility of adjusting for the special acuity and special circumstances, and also better understand the availability of the functions within Epic and the transport model. And more importantly, this is important to the patients because it is less waiting time for the patient. It's more predictability in the scheduling around these studies, and also it improves the patient experience by increasing the reliability related to the transport times. So with that, I will pass that over to Raju.
Thank you, Walter. Good evening. As Walter stated, the need for this ultrasound procedure workflow also came in preparation for the opening of our beautiful Morris Hammond Critical Care Pavilion. Once open, we will be actually transferring about 55% of our workload to the new building. But before I go into the workshop, just a quick overview of our current process. We are very lucky to be strategically situated right next to the emergency department, right next to the critical care wing, right next to the ER, to the lab, which does all the analysis, and just a couple of floors below the other nursing units. So it really made a lot of sense for the team of the radiologist, the imaging nurse, and the ultrasound technologist to stay in their room and have the patients brought to them. It's worked out quite well all these years, but now we're moving into the new building where we're going to be dividing our services in two areas. The key element for us to remember is that our goal should never ever change. The goal of providing our patients the best possible care and to provide that in a timely manner. So with that challenge in mind, we went to the workshop. We started out with me giving a little brief outlook review of our current processes, because 5 out of the 8 team members were members of other parts of the hospital. And so they really needed to know what was going on. I also shared with them the data of where the ultrasounds were being ordered from, med-surg, critical care, or ER. Once that was done, knowing that this is I call it a fast-track 3-day workshop, we sent the team to the Gemba. We were also very fortunate to have one of our radiologists, Dr. Mimi Lin, participate in this workshop, so she took the lead on to explain what was going on. Once the team spent a couple hours, had a good idea of the process, they came back and shared their ideas of what they saw, what they think that could happen, and we shared some ideas. Once that happened, we divided the group into two teams. The scheduling team looked at the current processes of the radiologists. They're pretty much dictating images or interpreting images. They are also consulting with clinicians who come to review some other their patients, and as well as probably doing interventional cases in ultrasound and CT. The nurses, on the other hand, could be assisting one radiologist in ultrasound, then go to the CT scan to do another biopsy, or even perhaps to go down to nuclear medicine to assist the cardiologist. So the goal was, how do we bring the two together so that now we can provide the same services in the two buildings? One of the things the team explored was maybe doing some block scheduling, perhaps doing all the interventional work in the hospital between 8 and 1, and then moving over to the Morris Hammond Pavilion between 1 and 4. One of the things that the team came up on their own selves was, hey, if we are doing block scheduling, why don't we put this schedule on Epic so that every nurse on every floor can tell what time their patient is going to go for the procedure? And I think that was a very positive move on the part of the team. So the team then created block schedule guidelines. They instructed our medical imaging RNs on how to do that scheduling. They also created a viewing schedule for all the nurses across the hospital to be able to see that schedule. And of course, now they're in the process of building an educational tool so we can spread this hospital-wide. Of course, the goal here was to make sure that everybody knew where the radiologists and the nurses were working at. And also, by scheduling patients on a certain time, we wanted to make sure that the patient was guaranteed that time slot, and that would obviously improve patient satisfaction. So while this team was tackling these scenarios, we had another team called the procedure flow team. Their goal was to, if we were to do some interventional work in ultrasound, especially draining a fluid or doing a biopsy in the Morris Hammond Pavilion, how would they create a process to collect those specimens and take them back to the lab, which was not moving? So they, of course, went and created standard work for collecting specimen labels across the building, as well as created processes for transferring the specimen to the lab, making sure that the specimen was safe, accurate, efficient, and very timely, because the lab has only a certain window of opportunity to analyze those fluids. Then we got the two teams together and to ask them for their input and guidance, and I probably saved the best for the last. Their decision was something that's going to be a bit of a challenge for our ultrasound technologist, but an immense improvement in our patient care. So every ultrasound ordered from the critical care unit will now be done at the bedside. The team went a step further. Every ultrasound order from the emergency department will also be done at the bedside. And I only have the board to thank for allowing us to acquire these very state-of-the-art ultrasound units that are mobile. And I think this whole step towards doing mobile sonography is going to be a major impact on our patient care, which is ultimately our goal. So towards the end, here are the two teams. The one on top is the one that dealt with the scheduling process, and the one at the bottom with Mr. Hyman there is the ultrasound workflow. And finally, I'd like to thank the board of directors for allowing us to come this evening and perhaps sharing a tiny portion of our lean journey. I also want to thank you, Nancy Farber, and of course all the associates for giving us a chance to be part of Washington's Kaizen. I always find it interesting that the Japanese word Kaizen, which stands for to change for the better, really goes well hand in hand with our patient-first ethic. Our continuous processes, attempts at improving our processes to make patient care a little better. And for that, we thank you.
Well, thank you.
Would there be any questions?
Questions?
Excellent. That's really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the construction report.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. So I think my report's going to be getting shorter and shorter. You can see the main thing we have left is the loading dock, and it's now actually the renovation of the existing loading dock as the new portion of loading dock is been completed. So you can see a lot of finished product in these videos or pictures. Here's the new emergency department waiting room, which was not set up for the grand opening. That was all left open, but this is now how it is set up and ready for occupancy. The main lobby and atrium. This gives you a shot of one of the critical care units, and you can see basically finished and getting products placed throughout the unit. The visitor waiting room on the third floor that looks into one of the interior courtyards. For those of us that park in the garage, this is sort of a welcome sight because this was highly constricted and gated off, and those fences have been removed and the area is striped. Ultimately, we'll have a gate back here that you'll have to have a badge to get back and forth into the garage area. And this is the extension of the loading dock. You can see pretty finished form at this point. And you can see the workers working on the connection to the main building from the corridor that runs behind the loading dock, which is also at this point completed. This is the ground or basement level, and this is the corridor connection into the new building. And so I think I've shown you something like this, but you could see things like expansion joints that will give you some flexibility and movement in the event of an earthquake. And the other thing is that we have been putting in flooring in the basement as well, so that's now complete. This is the public canopy entry. This is the entry to the new building here, and the connection will be over to the main hospital down a corridor this way. So that is also complete. You can see we have things like benches that have been installed, and these plants actually will grow up into the screens, and you'll have a green screen blocking off any of the mechanical spaces. This was a very large bioswale that's located over near Bart Way and Civic Center, and so most of the parking area And the drive alongside the back of Morris Hyman drains over to this bioswale. Here you get a shot that the road behind the building is also free and clear. This is another place that we're going to get a gate around here. Again, you'll have to have a card to get in and out, but these parking lot spaces are open. They're mainly there for police, clergy, ambulances, things like that. And of course, you can see the back 40 is planted, and we've got a green field there. So that's our facility. There's two things I'd like to announce that have occurred since the last board meeting and in the last week. So last Friday, we received our final OSHPD approval. And then today, we had the Fremont Fire Department come through and sign off and give us a 850 report, which means we turn that over to licensing. So construction-wise, we're done. And there's some little things still going on to get ready for licensing. Since he's sitting here in the crowd here, I feel like I should acknowledge Will Bartley, who has been the Rudolph and Sletton on-site manager for the 3+ years and has really been a real partner in getting this thing done, and we've been very pleased with their participation and leadership in this whole thing as well. So I should acknowledge you as well. Any questions?
It's nice to hear those words. We're done.
Yeah. What are you going to build next?
Yeah, well, we have several things coming, like we'll have to be removing the annex that's in front of the current emergency room and things like that. But
Okay.
yeah, there's more to come.
Well, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to the quality.
I'd be absolutely pleased to introduce our speaker tonight. Tonight, you're going to hear from Dr. James McGuire. He is a UCLA graduate. He attends, in the sense of medical attending, 6 weeks per year at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, and participates in the teaching of medical students, interns, residents, and fellows. At Washington Hospital, his teaching activities primarily center on medical students, nursing staff, and respiratory therapists. Besides teaching, bedside teaching is done with nurses on rounds, and simulations are run. Bedside teaching with our pediatric hospitalists is offered and done as clinical opportunities are available. In 2013, Dr. McGuire implemented an ICU rotation for family practice residents, which he precepted and coordinated the details both before and during the rotations. He is the medical director of our special care nursery.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for having me here, Nancy, Tim, Jeannie, and the board. Really glad to update you on what's going on in our Washington Hospital Special Care Nursery. And as Nancy said, I am a professor at UCSF, and I spent time, I just was at UCSF for 2 weeks. It was quite busy, and really excited to be here. I don't know if you know, but I live in the city of Fremont. I actually picked up my Tri-City voice just as I came in because my family finds a lot of things to do in Fremont and the surrounding areas, and that makes it even more special to talk about our special care nursery, because this is the city I live in, and I see the parents and I see their children at my gym and in the community, and it's really very special to be able to have follow up in that way, and then also out at the hospital, which we'll get to in our reunion slide. So again, in 2014, Washington Hospital established a partnership with UCSF, and that affiliation with UCSF is that UCSF physicians, neonatologists, and pediatric hospitalists collaborate and work alongside the Washington Hospital nursing and ancillary staff So the nurses, which used to be employed by Packard for the special care nursery, now are employed by Washington Hospital, and that has created a lot of benefits as they're part of one big team on the second floor, led by Carmen Williams, and then also by Edith Ananeo, our special. Carmen is the director of the second floor, and then Edith is a manager of the special care nursery. So our department goals are comprehensive and integrated care for the community, and then a seamless transition for our infants requiring a higher level care, which would be at UCSF typically, which is often means that they'll be transferred to UCSF, and I or one of my colleagues will take care of them at UCSF, and then we often transfer them back. And it's really, I think, it makes the families very happy when they recognize one of us there. And it's happened a number of times that I've taken care of a baby at Washington Hospital, and then it just so happens that I'm at UCSF a week or two later because the baby's there and needs to be taken care of. And I think that really helps them, and then they feel more comfortable coming back here, which is good for the babies, good for the moms, because it's a drive to any of the level 3s, whether that's Packard and Stanford or UCSF or Oakland Children's. They are all a bit of a hike, and so we always are trying to get the babies back to Washington Hospital so that they can work on breastfeeding and have more visits. And they're usually very torn, these mothers, because they have other children that are young, and it's hard to go back and forth whether to any of those higher level of care. So we try to do a seamless transition when we have to, and then try to bring them back when we can. So our service utilization is that we've been sort of, there's the average, and our average is about 4 patients per day, but of course it's sometimes many more than that, and sometimes it's less than that. And so we average sometimes as many as 10, and I just have to give a shout out for many of our staff, but I particularly want to note the nursing staff, because it sometimes seems like a miracle that we'll have 10 babies in there, and Jeannie and others will be volunteering, and we are just so busy, but they always find nurses to work, and it's just amazing. They work extra shifts, and they stay late, and they somehow or another manage to always have our special care nursery staffed appropriately, even when we're really, really busy. And as you can see in the other slides, we mainly discharge our babies home. And then actually one of the other benefits is that we now, because we're not a separate unit, we're not Packard unit anymore, we can send the babies back to the moms very easily, and we do that. And then occasionally we have to send the babies to a higher level of care, usually UCSF. And so, and then our number of admissions vary per month. Our quality and strategic initiatives, well, it's always great to have an electronic medical record. I'm very supportive of that, but there are always challenges. And one challenge was when a baby's born, they don't exist in the electronic medical record, and sometimes there's an emergency where we need blood for the baby right away, and if they're not in the system, then it's hard to have something happen. That is to say, specifically get that blood very fast up into our hands to give to the baby, and sometimes that's necessary. It doesn't happen, fortunately, that often. It might be only every 5 to 10 years here at Washington Hospital, but it will happen, and so we put a lot of effort creating this blood algorithm that in the last year or so, and many people led this. Simon Lee, who's the UCSF pediatric hospitalist lead, and he, and along with David Levin and Emily Gamboa, our clinical nurse educator, worked very hard to, as you can see, it's a complicated slide, and the different parts have to make sure, because it's a rare circumstance, but we've even done simulation. Stephanie's been there when we've done a simulation to sort of make sure that we're going to be ready when this happens, because we want to be ready, and these things happen in every hospital. So it's really nice to be part of the hospital as opposed to be separate to make these things happen smoothly. Another initiative that we've done is reducing antibiotic use. So it used to be that when moms had an infection during labor and delivery, they called it chorioamnionitis. Then the standard practice was to always treat those babies with antibiotics. And then there was a new approach that came around in the last 5 or so years, and that was to use an evidence-based approach and to sort of select which ones needed antibiotics. And so we've used that approach. It sort of was led by Kaiser, and there's a lot of literature and hundreds of thousands of babies who've been using this approach, and it's been very safe. And the good news is that by using this approach, fewer babies are being treated, more babies are staying with mothers. And then there's a secondary thing, which is there's a lot of concerns with antibiotic resistance. And so not just the C. difficile, which we are always worried about in every hospital, but then there's also now concerns that early use of antibiotics in babies and children is associated with chronic conditions such as asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, and obesity. And so we're feeling that down the road we're going to be helping our community by minimizing our use of antibiotics. So that's decreased our antibiotic use and keeping babies with moms when we can safely do so. And I think the community really is going to be happy about that, has been happy. And for example, that's actually been shown in the, we're part of a database. Yesterday I was at a database meeting called the California Perinatal Quality Care Collaborative with Edith Ananeo, our nurse manager, and Emily Gamboa, our educator, and Kelly Carlson, one of the unit coordinators who helps with our database collection and entry and all that. So we were down in San Jose. But this collaborative looks at many aspects of neonatal care, and in particular, the blue graph is the average. I think it's, well, mine it's blue. I don't know what's on yours, but at gray, it says 7.5 is the average number of exposures of antibiotics per 100 live births. And in the state of California, it's about 7.5. But because we've moved to this approach of giving antibiotics less frequently, we're down to 4.3. And that's, I think, where everybody's going to be moving, is to give fewer antibiotics to our babies in the hospitals, and they're measuring this because I think that's something that's important to the neonatal community, and then obviously the public at large as they become more aware of it. So we're in front with the other leaders in this area. In terms of infections, obviously that's always a concern for any intensive care unit, and central line bloodstream infections are something that are always a concern in any unit that has central lines, and we have them. Not a lot of days, but the good news is that in 2017 we had no central line bloodstream infections, which we're very happy about. We only had 45 days of central line use, so we wouldn't frankly have expected one, but the thing is that's a very good measure to be proud of, and we are very proud of it. And as I said, it's 0, and so that's why it's not even up, because it's just flat. It's 0. So we're very proud of that, and we put a lot of effort into making sure our central lines are taken care of carefully, and I'm very proud of our nursing staff who have worked really hard at that to make sure that goes well. Another change that we've had in the last year or so is Washington Hospital has put together a prenatal diagnostic center headed by Jackie Chu, who's also a professor at UCSF like myself. So she's a maternal fetal medicine specialist, and that I think you have heard more about probably at other board meetings, but I'll just speak to it a little bit, which is it provides access to prenatal care to the Washington Township community and appropriate management of high-risk patients. And then hopefully there will be deliveries at Washington Hospital because of Jackie Chu's relationship, being a UCSF professor, and our relationship, and she comes over to the special care nursery and talks with myself and other colleagues and participates in meetings, which, to be honest, before she came, there was no perinatologist participating in meetings at Washington Hospital. And so she comes to the perinatal morbidity and mortality, and she comes to other meetings to sort of offer her insights, and obviously she's mainly focused in her clinic, but it's really been great. So she's offering in her clinic the prenatal care diagnoses, invasive fetal testing, genetic counseling, and maternal disease outpatient consultations. And she's been just a great addition to the bigger team. Education and professional development. So some of our education has been focused on collaboration. As I said, under Packard, the unit was sort of separate. I mean, it was physically part of the building, but it was sort of separate, and there wasn't a lot of interactions. And so, of course, communication is really important for crises, and frankly, that's what happens in intensive care. We have an emergency, and we have to communicate clearly and effectively and quickly. And the administration supported a team steps approach, for example, in 2016, which I'll get to focus on that. So basically, we've been focusing on what we can do during medical interactions to have better communication, because that affects the quality of care. And so we've also, because we now have the units not being separate, we have our birthing center nurses who are taking care of moms and babies also come into our special care nursery. So when we're busier, they can help, and then vice versa, our special care nurseries can help in the birthing center. And so it's made it more efficient in ways. And then also, we have more meetings with our colleagues, and so I participate, like today, at a special care nursery leadership meeting that Carmen Williams came with, and the director, and so we have more collaboration and communication because we're all on the same team on the second floor. We're not separate, the special care nursery from the birthing center, and I think that really has helped with our outcomes because of this communication. We review near misses, complicated cases, and of course those rare sentinel events that need to be reviewed so that we can see how we can do things better, and use our other colleagues as part of the administration, like Mary Bowron. The UCSF pediatric hospitalists now are more involved in the special care nursery. The neonatologist is always on call, but we have the pediatric hospitalists in hospital 24/7, and so they are more front at the bedside, and then they're calling us as needed, and that we think makes a continued positive impact on patient outcomes. One of the things that we put a lot of effort into was something that does happen rarely, but not like the blood that happens like once every 10 years or so, but the birth of extremely low birth weight infants. So these are the babies that weigh sort of less than 3 pounds and are more than like 11, 12 weeks early. And they're very fragile, and the first hours of life can determine really their entire future, because if they have a bleed in their brain, then that can be devastating, and there's really nothing that can be done to change the long-term outcome. So we didn't have a smooth approach, an updated approach, and so we wanted to improve that. And one of the collaborations with UCSF is UCSF had actually worked on this in early 2016. So I reached out to UCSF and said, can we have one of your educators come down and partner with us to teach our team this approach, so that we would all not have to reinvent that wheel, but we would use what they had done. And so one of their educators, Tanya Kampke, came down, and she spent about 6 months here, and a good portion of that was working on this approach for these very, very small babies, which we have about 4 to 8 a year born here. And so it's something that's going to happen every year, and we always transfer them out, but still those first few hours are just so critical. And so we continued to, so we created a protocol, and we went over this with the pediatric hospitalist, because sometimes the neonatologist won't make it in time. The baby will just be delivered so fast that we can't get there in time, although we come in, but it's just something that we had everybody train, nurses, respiratory care practitioners, the pediatric hospitalists, neonatologists, and again, by working together at these skill labs and simulation, we feel that helped our communication. And then the feedback in the simulation and mock codes and training, and the UCSF support was, as you can read, increased collaboration, improved pre-huddle. The pre-huddle meant that we would sort of assign roles before the delivery and say, okay, this is what you're going to do. I know you haven't done it before. It's been years since you've done it, but this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to do. Do you have any questions about that? And what do you want to go over anything? And so by doing that, we made everybody feel ready before the actual delivery happened, as opposed to sort of saying, good luck. So we want everybody to be ready so that we can have our resuscitations go smoothly. And as I mentioned, the increased collaboration, improved pre-huddle, assigned roles helped improve patient outcomes. These are testimonials from our team. A smoother transition from the operating room to the special care nursery, and then they're more comfortable taking care of these babies. Used to be people were sort of terrified. Now we're still worried because it's something that we do rarely, but at the same point in time, people feel much more comfortable, and I think we're doing a better job. That's the other thing on communication. I keep on mentioning this, and that was team steps, which the administration supported, as I said, in 2016. And as I mentioned, the Joint Commission has even said that poor teamwork and communication were the most common root causes for potentially preventable infant deaths in the delivery room. That's from the American Academy of Pediatrics in 2016. So team steps is a way of improving communication and skills, and a team approach actually came in part from the military, and it's a whole topic in itself. But in any case, we had everybody on the second floor, doctors, nurses, respiratory care practitioners, lactation, anesthesia, OBs train in this and get certified in this. Essentially in 2016, and we continue to have all the new hires continue to go through a training in this, so we're all trying to speak the same language. We use it for our neonatal resuscitation program, which is like basic life support, which everybody has to have on the second floor, just about everybody. And so this improves our communication, improves our teamwork, and we're really glad that we're working together well. And patient experience. So patient satisfaction. So the testimonies, I think, say it best, and the slide, we have some photographs which I think even say it better. So my baby and I had a great experience with the doctors and nurses at Special Care Nursery. They were wonderful. Everybody was compassionate and sympathetic and attended to our needs. My baby was here for a month, and I'm impressed with all the nurses, and I really like the doctors who took care of me and my baby, and the really wonderful doctors. But the slide is, I think, hot off the press. I just saw it, so I guess it has, it's been improving. I think some of the numbers were cut off on the left-hand side, so it's 0505, I think it was. So I'm not sure exactly what was on the y-axis in terms of that percentile. But in any case, they're improving over the last sort of year, which is great. Yeah, we work very hard at that. Our nurse manager, Edith Ananeo, and our social worker really check in with the families. But I think the best part is our reunion, and we've had two since over the last since UCSF has come on board. And as you can see, all the smiles, and in particular, I want to note three of them, which are the two in the middle at the top, and then one with the black family. Those were all babies that were at UCSF. One or two of them started here and then went to UCSF and then came back because of a relationship with UCSF for once they were sort of past their most critical phase, because some were born, as I said, very, very premature, but they were happy with their experience here, and then they were happy to come back. So that's great. But again, I want to say thanks for the board, thanks for Nancy Farber and many others for supporting having our reunion, and we're looking to have a bigger and better one. So our next steps are, again, the reunion, which will be bigger and better, and it's just a lot of fun. It's really great to see the babies. People are very happy. I should have shown you one slide. So the one, I don't know if you can see it really well, but the slide here with everybody holding it was really just quite the moment. I wish there were video of it. So we were going to take a photo, and somebody said, "Oh, could you hold our baby?" And then all these moms, so those are all the staff in the Hawaiian outfits. We sort of chose the Hawaiian outfits. So all these moms were bringing their babies up for us to hold. And so those 20 babies or so were all sort of given to us to hold. And it was just really a great way of showing, I think, the trust that the families have and the relationship that we have. And as you can see, everybody's happy to be participating and holding those babies. But it was a really special photo. It was my colleague Nahid Rostami's idea of doing that, and it was great. Plan for our antepartum unit was something that we're working towards the administration. The SCN is going to have some remodeling, a facelift, nothing hugely structural. And then increased simulation training to, again, be prepared for those rare emergencies, which will happen. And then donor breast milk is something that has become much more doable in the recent years. It was sort of not something that was done so much like 25 years ago, and wasn't as much in favor. But now in more recent years, it's something that many families prefer, and many medical situations are improved by using donor breast milk instead of formula. And so with that in mind, and with the support of the administration, and we're moving forward with how we can do that well. So those are the major things. And I really want to say thanks to Mary Bowerin, to Lamia, to many others who put this presentation together. I want to say thanks to many of the special care nursery, because again, really it's environmental services, it's lactation, it's occupational therapy, it's the nurses, respiratory care practitioners, just many others. We're having a party, for example, for our unit at one of the Peds hospice house, and we're inviting all those people because it's really our whole family, and that's how I think we see it that way. Any questions? Anything I can answer?
No, I don't.
You're welcome. Okay.
But thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Okay. Finance report?
Chris?
Looking at Washington Hospital's operating and financial results for August 2018. And moving into our acute inpatient statistics, average daily census for the month came in 2.7 above the budget at 151.9. We had 1,005 admissions, just 6 off of the budget of 1,011. Patient days for the month were 84 above budget at 4,710. And our observation days were 47 above budget at 171. Our average length of stay for the month, just a little bit above budget at 4.75. Looking at utilization, case mix index for the month was a little bit below what we expected for August at 1.470. We had budgeted for 1.495. We had 148 deliveries in the month, 10 above the budget. I think that's the highest number we've seen in a number of months. Surgical cases for the month were 32 above budget. That includes our joint replacement cases that were 3 above budget. Neurosurgical cases were 1 below budget at 18. We had 6 cardiac cases against a budget of 13, and general surgery really drove the majority of the variance for the month. Cath lab procedures for August were really close to budget, just 1 off at 347. Our outpatient visits came in at 7,813. We had budgeted 7,771, so pretty close there. Emergency room visits continue to be lower than what we've seen over the last couple of years. 209 below the budget in August at 4,053. Still a busy place. Quick look at the cath lab activity. Peripheral vascular really was the busiest product line in the cath lab in August at 42% of the activity, followed by cardiac at 31% and non-vascular interventional radiology at 27%. Moving to productivity, our productive full-time equivalents for the month were 27.1 above the budget at 1,223.7. We had 180.1 non-productive FTEs in August, giving us total FTEs that were 17.4 above the budget at 1,403.8. Our FTEs per adjusted occupied bed, which is our productivity measure, came in at 6.6 against a budget of 6.9. So again, staffing was appropriate for the activity. Moving into the numbers, as always, we'll look at our Governmental Accounting Standards Board presentation first. This is the presentation used for the audited financials that Mike McBride spoke about a little bit earlier tonight. Total patient revenue came in almost $10 million above the budget at $169,521,000. However, our deductions as a percentage of revenue were above budget as well at 78.97%. That was made up of our contractual allowances that were above budget at 76.9%. Payer mix was rough this month. Governmental payers were higher than budget. HMO, PPO were below budget. And the real driver here was our provision for bad debt and charity. Our private pay, as a percentage of gross revenue came in, it doesn't seem like much. 2.3% was the budget. It came in at 2.2%, but that's a 45% increase in our private pay, and it really drove a big change in our bad debt. On the contractual allowances, that variance is primarily driven by the level of gross revenue, but the payer mix took about another $500,000 out of that. But private pay really came in at $1.5 million above budget, and that drove the biggest part of the variance. So we ended up the month with net revenue that was $311,000 above the budget at $36,107,000. Operating expenses for the month came in $519,000 above the budget at $36,449,000. had a couple of movers there. Salaries and wages were, we had higher level of FTEs, so salaries and wages came in about $500,000 above budget. That was offset almost exactly by lower benefits costs. We had lower health and welfare claims in the month. And our supplies actually drove the majority of that variance. They came in $423,000 above the budget. And our purchase services and pro fees, really driven by consulting and legal, was about $80,000 over budget for the month. So we ended August with an operating bottom line from a GASB perspective at a $342,000 loss. We had actually expected $134,000, pretty close to break even when you think about the scale of these numbers. Non-operating income for the month came in $345,000 above the budget. We did have a $395,000 unrealized gain on our investments. I think we're going to start to see, as interest rates continue to climb, those numbers degrade a bit over the next several months. But we ended up the month from a GASB perspective with total net income of $898,000 against a budget of $761,000, about $137 over budget. Moving into our FASB presentation, net revenue stays the same in this presentation. We pull out the interest expense of about $500,000 that in the GASB presentation is in non-operating. FASB wants us to move that up to operating expenses, and we end up with operating income from a FASB perspective of $843,000 against a loss of $843,000 against a budgeted loss of $631,000. We also pull our property tax revenue that supports our general obligation bonds and that unrealized gain on investments out of our non-operating income to end up with actually a non-operating loss of $93,000 and a total loss from a FASB perspective of $936,000 against a budget of $678,000. So are there any questions on August?
It's just impressive to see how much the payer mix hits
It doesn't take much of a shift in that, especially when you think about the government payers, and Mike talked about that being, it's actually around 73% of our gross revenue. They don't cover cost. So any shift of that in the payer mix really has a dramatic effect on our financials.
When you have over 70% of your business not paying their full freight, it's tough to make a bottom line. And it always has been. And I wonder how much longer, as an industry, this shifting of costs to commercial insurance is going to be sustained. I think that the public is becoming ever more cost conscious as it relates to this, particularly as affordable care is being dismantled. And they're expected to bear more of those costs themselves. And for however briefly affordable care lasted, it did help the public. And now it's being taken apart brick by brick. So we'll go on with September of this year. Our gross revenue amounted to $154.7 million for September. It came in below budget by $6.8 million for a 4.2% negative variance. It is less of a negative variance than we experienced in September of last year. Our inpatient gross revenue amounted to $106.9 million, below budget by $12.6 million, and below budget, thank you, sorry about that, by compared to the year before, which was 16.5%. It's less of a drop than last year's. Our outpatient gross revenue of $47.8 million was above budget by $5.9 million. That's a 14.1% positive variance, and it is $6.4 million better than September a year ago. The shift from inpatient to outpatient occurred due to the federal government's decision that Medicare patient joint replacement surgeries should occur in the outpatient setting. Major drivers of the revenue variance included a shift in surgical services procedure mix from cardiac surgical cases to general surgical cases, and that drove our surgical services revenue down by $2.8 million, below what we had budgeted. Our cath lab procedures were also below budget by 44 cases, driving cath lab revenue below budget by $1.6 million. Our inpatient days were below budget by 29 days, driving room and board revenue 1.2% below budget, or $372,000. The overall lower level of activity drove ancillary services revenue below budget by $1.8 million. It's a negative variance of 2.5%. Our average length of stay at 4.81 was above budget. We had budgeted 4.62. So it was also a longer length of stay than September a year ago. Our outpatient observation days were 32 above budget at 155 days. The average daily census of 146.2 was below budget. We had budgeted 147.2. Our admissions were 46 below budget. Admissions for the month were 139 below September a year ago. In terms of our patient days, we had 4,386, and they were below budget by 29. The surgical cases in September of 360 were above budget by 8. The surgical cases were 15 above budget a year ago in September. Inpatient surgeries were 46 below budget at 229. Outpatient surgeries were 54 above budget at 131. The shift from inpatient to outpatient, as mentioned previously, was the shift in joint replacement category. Surgical activity included general surgical procedures above budget by 29 cases. Neurosurgical procedures were above budget by 1. Cardiac surgical procedures were below budget by 7. Joint replacement surgeries were below budget by 15. Cath lab procedures for September of 309 were 44 below budget, and 58 below September a year ago. Inpatient cath lab procedures were above budget by 23. Outpatient cath lab procedures were below budget by 67. Peripheral vascular procedures in the cath lab were above budget by 20. Neurointerventional radiology procedures were below budget by 1 in the cath lab. Non-vascular interventional radiology procedures were below budget by 27. I might mention that one of our busiest cardiologists was on vacation. Cardiac procedures were below budget by 36. Deliveries for September of 126 came in below budget by 15 cases. Non-emergency outpatient visits of 6,899 were below budget by 287 visits. Lab visits came in below budget by 204. Outpatient wound visits were below budget by 49. Diabetes education visits were also below budget by 32. Our emergency room visits of 4,085 were below budget by 130. Productive FTEs came in above budget by 8.0. Non-productive FTEs were below budget by 3.1. Total FTEs of 1,399.1 were above budget by 4.9. Total productive FTEs per adjusted occupied bed of 5.77 were below the budget of 6.10. Total FTEs per adjusted occupied bed of 6.61 were below the budget by 0.40. Other operating statistics include the surgery center had 465 cases in September. This came in 8 cases below their budget. Clinic visits of 3,319 were below budget by 166 visits for the month of September. Washington Urgent Care came in 154 fewer than budgeted. Nakamura, 128 fewer than budgeted. The Newark Clinic came in 128 cases more than budgeted. Warm Springs, we have a new doctor there. Warm Springs Clinic, 36 cases fewer, and the Ohlone Clinic came in 24 cases more. Our preliminary payer mix information for the month of September, ta-da, is favorable. Our government-sponsored patient revenue made up 67.4% of total gross revenue. We had budgeted 71.2%. HMO revenue was 1.6% of gross revenue, which came in below the budget of 3.0%. The PPO revenue was 27.6% of gross revenue, which is above the budget, considerably above the budget of 23.5%. And therein lies a favorable month, I hope. Private pay revenue was 3.4% of gross revenue. We had budgeted 2.3%, and that is a trend that is holding and not good for the district. Days cash on hand for September ended at 187 days. We're down 1 day from last month. Days of gross revenue and accounts receivable were 53, which is a stunning figure, absolutely stunning. There were $710,285 in charity care applications pending or approved in September, and you can see that it's begun its inexorable march into the millions. So.
Okay. All right. We're now going to move into the action items this evening. And let's see here. I guess it's going to be you, Doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Item
A.
Yeah, item A. Mr. President, in accordance with district law policies and procedures, I move that the board authorize the chief executive officer to enter into the necessary contracts to proceed with the purchase of 38 defibrillators for a total amount not to exceed $787,000.
Second.
Thank you. Nancy?
I can imagine this is pretty necessary equipment. What I would like to tell you is that we began upgrading our defibrillator inventory in 2009, and this replaces the balance of those outstanding. And the ones that we have on site now that are the old ones from 2000 are at the end of support by the vendor.
Okay.
Director Wallace?
Aye.
Director Stewart?
Aye.
Director Nicholson?
Aye.
Director Epen?
Aye.
Director Danielson?
Okay. That motion passes. Item B.
Mr. President, in accordance with district law policies and procedures, I move that the board authorize the chief executive officer to enter into the necessary contracts to proceed with the purchase of the Gaumard simulation mannequins for a total amount not to exceed $165,122.
Second.
Thank you.
These are the mannequins that we train nurses and physicians with at times. The high-fidelity mannequins and software in the simulation center are more than 10 years old, and they require a lot of ongoing maintenance. As you can imagine, they are used heavily. And I... That's an interesting question. I'll have to find out. You'd be surprised how much use our surplus ends up getting. There are things that we discard that we think no one would be interested in. And you'd be surprised who is. Some of these things get sent overseas. Things like incubators that are no longer of any use to us. The wildlife rescue groups are very anxious to have. So these things come and go, and we have charitable organizations like Wildlife Rescue come in and get these things, and they're very happy to have them. I doubt they would be interested in our mannequins, but we may find somebody who is.
Overseas, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Director Wallace?
Aye.
Director Stewart?
Aye.
Director Nicholson?
Aye.
Director Epen?
Aye.
Director Danielson?
Okay, I think that covers the this portion of the meeting. We're going to adjourn to a closed session. All right, we're going to reconvene the open session and announce that there was no reportable actions taken during the closed session. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.